All right, if you're anything like me, you are sick of superhero movies and shows. I know I certainly am, all right? Every single week, it feels like there's a new superhero movie, a new superhero show, someone telling me, oh, you got to check out this one. This one's like realistic and gritty. And like all of them are realistic and gritty nowadays, but none of them do this as well as Netflix's new series, Supercell. I cannot recommend this show highly enough. If you are a superhero fan, but honestly, just a TV fan in general, I think this is genuinely a must watch. I do not know why I don't hear more people talk about Supercell. I think it's excellent. I think it's smart. I think it's socially aware. I think it's really well written and well paced. So today I want to give a spoiler-free review, basically a general recommendation as to why I think you should check out this show. And hopefully, as you hear me talk about it, makes you want to check out the show. And on top of that, I will get into some spoiler thoughts about character beats and storylines that I found really fascinating. So, spoiler-free, this is another superhero team-up TV show. There's a speedster, there's someone who's super strong, there's someone who can teleport and go through time, there's someone who can use telekinesis. You've seen this show before. There's someone who has fire powers. But what makes this show so interesting is all of their personal lives before getting powers are incredibly fascinating in their own rights. The best parts of this show aren't actually the superhero stuff. It's these people's personal lives and how they are disrupted by them getting special abilities. A character like Andre, for example, who is given the power of super strength, is struggling to reconnect with his son after he's gone through a divorce with his son's mother. It's incredibly interesting. I found all the plot lines about the debt he's in, the debt collectors that are following him around, his quest to get in a job despite having a criminal record, all incredibly fascinating. I feel like the way this show sets up scenarios is so excellent. They set up consistently these situations where Andre is trying to impress his son and not let his son down, and then they show that just life beats him down and gets in his way. There is a great scene early on where he talks about wanting to take on extra shifts and get a promotion, and then the boss asks to see him in another room, and your heart sinks because you know where it's going. On top of that, there is another great scene where after getting let go from that job, Andre applies for another job and actually opens up to the employer about his criminal record in a moment of transparency and honesty, and the show doesn't reward him for this. He doesn't get the job. You know, it's cruel and dark, but this show feels incredibly real to life. On top of that, I found the character dynamics between Michael and his girlfriend just so well realized. You know, this genuinely feels like what a real couple that's about to get engaged would go through if one of them got superpowers. She is anxious and concerned and a really good girlfriend, and he's like scared and terrified and acting erratically. And I think the conflict that is brought up between them is so well done, so well explored. I just loved all the kind of personal character dynamics and character arcs for these characters, even with the superpowers removed. Another interesting character is Taser, and I really liked that Taser is kind of a villain for a lot of it. He uses his powers to murder rival gang members, and there is no compassion or mercy shown. We feel for him and empathize for him in certain moments because he's one of the main characters, but he does stuff that is just as bad as the villains of the piece at different points. And I really admire that the show is willing to take our main characters to really dark places. Taser at multiple points beats the shit out of men and women alike. He uses his powers to go invisible and actually full on murder people. And I really appreciate the line that this show is trying to have us walk, where we're sitting there going like, I feel bad for your situation, what you're going through, but I can't condone what you've just put other people through. Incredibly fascinating. On top of that, I think the core mystery here, while it isn't something we haven't seen before, I think it's just so well delivered. They set up very early on in the opening moments of the show that there is this facility that is operating and supervising on these superpowered individuals. And throughout the season, you're waiting for the full story of that company to be revealed and the true intentions to be revealed. And I do think, even though this is a story we've seen before, I don't think we've seen it delivered as well. There are multiple mysteries that are threaded throughout this season that have incredibly satisfying payoffs. I also love that this world feels like a living, breathing world. You know, different characters in completely different parts of town will have little circumstantial moments that overlap between another character's story we're following. For example, Dion is a social worker and catches wind of Taser's missing mother, and it's really well handled and really well delivered. And while we're talking about Dion knowing about Taser's mother, I actually want to talk about the social commentary in this show, because I don't think I've seen a show handle this sort of stuff as well. I think the stuff that this show has to say about the Black experience experience in the UK is incredibly well realized and well thought out. And I think the way that these superpowers reflect some of their struggles in their environments is incredibly fascinating. This show isn't just asking what would it be like if there were superheroes in real life. This show is asking what if people that are victims of the society around them got superpowers? How would that look? How would that play out? And I think it's so well done. I think the soundtrack is excellent. I think it's beautifully well shot. I think there are so many sequences that are just heart-wrenching and powerful. Unlike what's going on with The Boys currently, every single side plot informs another side plot. You know, every single side plot that's going on over here eventually informs a side plot that's going on over here. I just think it's so well done. The only big critiques I have is some of the effects in the first episode, particularly in the back end, are just incredibly clunky. And there are some character choices that I'm just really struggling to get my head around in the last couple episodes. But aside from that, I genuinely think you really need to check out this show. This is a must watch in my opinion. It's only 6 episodes. Like, do yourself a favor and watch this show. Pay attention because it pays off. All right, so let's get into spoiler talk. I love the idea that SUPACELL, this genetic mutation that these characters have, is based on a real thing. It is a fictional mutation of a real thing called sickle cell, which I didn't know existed. And when Googling, I realized that 90% of people that have sickle cell are Black or African American or Hispanic. So I find that really interesting. I think in terms of this show's social commentary and what it's trying to say, I think the idea that a mutation of something that is normally ignored by white society is incredibly profound and fascinating, and just such a well-conceived, smart idea if you are trying to make a socially conscious superhero show. It's really fascinating that this supercell genetic mutation is ignored the way a lot of issues plaguing the Black communities in UK are ignored. I think it's really well thought out. I think serves as a really good allegory for certain racial tensions that are being explored in this show. I also love that, yeah, these characters are really questionable. Some of the things they do are genuinely awful and heinous, and it really puts you in an interesting position because in my opinion, the conflict between Crazy and Taser is one that I'm sort of torn on. And I love that our core set of heroes aren't just all good or all bad. They're all on different levels of the scale. Taser is a really well-interested character because the only reason I find I can have major empathy for him is the fact that he's young and the fact that he's missing his mum and he thinks his mum abandoned him. But at different points, we are expected to have empathy and understanding for things that he has inflicted on other people. He loses a friend to gang violence, but 2 episodes earlier, he murdered multiple people in cold blood with an unfair advantage, might I add, by going invisible and stabbing them and letting them bleed out. So I think his conflict with Crazy that kind of bubbles and brews throughout the season is really well done. I also love that Crazy is initially just presented as a gang-related villain to Taser, but then becomes a main superhero villain to all our core characters. I also love the journey that Michael goes on trying to assemble this team. I also love that Michael is keeping it secret that the future version of him is a villain that this team will eventually have to face off. I think it's really ripe for great messy drama that could be explored in season 2. I also think everything going on with Sabrina and her friend is just so well done. I love all the scenes between them. I love the conflict that brews between them. I also love that Sabrina starts using her powers to get her friend out of tight spots in abusive situations. I love the moment where she uses her powers to beat up the cheating, abusive partner of her friend. I also love the moment in the alleyway where she intervenes in a potential assault. I think it's so well done. I think the moment where the perpetrator of that assault is revealed to also have superpowers really raises the stakes and makes you uncomfortable and kind of like concerned for the well-being of our core characters. The idea that so many people, some with great morals, some with awful morals, all have superpowers and are unstoppable forces of nature is seriously intimidating. I think the idea that a woman defending herself from an abusive situation might be dealing with someone who has superpowers who can then use those powers to inflict further abuse is actually seriously intimidating. And the show has the guts to explore these concepts with the seriousness and weight that I think they deserve. I think it's just so well done. Also, I love the idea that Dion's death feels inevitable. I wish this was a bit more communicated within the actual characters, because there's a point where Michael basically just goes, yeah, I'm not going to go back in time anymore to save Dion. So let's talk about the ending. I absolutely love the section where they finally team up and they take down Crazy. I love the moment where they let Crazy live. They try and form an alliance and he kills the entire team. I think it's a really fascinating moment, and you see how bloodthirsty he is. You see what he's capable of. So when Michael reverses time to kill Crazy, I think it's a really great moment, and I love that he goes for it. I also love that the payoff for that, the consequence of that, is that Dion dies. Now, I will say I wish he communicated it better to the team and to the audience as to why he can't go back in time to save Dion. I think what we are meant to assume, what we are meant to put together, is the idea that Dion's death is always inevitable, but I think the way it's framed, it really does look like if she just drove away and didn't stay in the dangerous environment, she would have been fine. I think it would have been really, really well done if we just got a section of multiple attempts of him trying to save Dion, and no matter what he does, eventually she dies, so therefore he just moves on and tries to prevent the future from ever happening. I just wish they executed it a bit better, because as an observant audience member, as someone who's seen a bunch of stories in this genre before, I'm doing some of the heavy lifting. I'm sitting there going, okay, I assume the reason you're not going back in time is because you figured out it's inevitable, but I just wish within the world of the characters, they figured that out too. But aside from that, I really don't have too many notes for this show. Aside from some wonky effects and some occasional moments where I'm like, yeah, I've seen this before, I think this show was absolutely excellent. I think the ideas it was exploring in terms of race relations and the way the government focuses on certain people and not others, and the difference between the way certain communities are treated and prioritized compared to others, was so well executed. I thought the superhero story that they were trying to tell really complemented the social commentary that was also like laced within the show. I thought it was excellent. I thought all the performances were great. And again, I cannot emphasize enough how much I appreciate that all these characters felt so real, so authentic, and every single side story and every single side plot felt really real and well realized and lived in. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't seen the show, be sure to check it out. If you have seen the show, let me know what you thought of the characters and the show in general. Please let me know what you'd like me to talk about next, and have a lovely day. Thank you so much for watching.